Hey everyone, it's Holly here again at the Crafty Attic, and today I'm going to show you how to apply napkins to recycled alcohol bottles. These were actually Pendleton bottles that a local bar gave me. They have the horse on the bottom, but I painted them using the Krylon chalk paint. Colonial Ivory, I believe, was the color. And it took about 3 coats to cover the entire bottle. And I'm going to do these in a set of 3. I have these fun napkins. This is a sage, basil, and rosemary. I think they'd make some fun kitchen decor. So I'll go get set up and I'll be back and we'll start the process. Okay, I'm back and I think we have everything that we need to get started here. So the bottle that I'm using has seams down both sides, so I kind of want to work around those. I think I'll center the napkin in between the seams. And also on the bottom there's this notch on the bottle, so I'm going to turn that to the back so we can't see it as much. And we will need Modge Podge, which I don't work out of the big bottle because it dries out so fast, so I like to pour mine into a canning jar. And this one's been used for a while, so it is getting a little dry around the edges, but I think we can get what we need out of it. And to apply the Modge Podge, I use a sponge brush, and this one already has Modge Podge on it from a previous project. I just keep them in a Ziploc baggie and reuse them, and you'd be surprised how many uses you can get out of one. Okay, and then we'll need saran wrap. And I always have my piece torn off ahead of time so you don't have to rush to get back to it before the Modge Podge dries. And I'll be using a watercolor pen. That's just water in there. I'm not sure what the watercolor people do with it, but probably blend colors. I'll use this to tear the napkin. Gives it a rough edge so that it blends in with the paint. And I believe that's all we need. So the napkin I'm going to start with is the sage. And these are 3-ply napkins, so I've already started peeling the plies apart ahead of time. As you can see, there's 2 plies on the back. And we're just going to use the front piece. You can see through it, that's what we want. Very thin, so you have to be really careful not to tear. Okay, so it's a bit large for the bottle I'm using. So I'll probably take a little off the top and the sides and the bottom because we don't want to go too far down with it. So with the water pen, you just go across the edge. Just get it wet enough that you can tear it. And I'm going to go right to here. I don't want that edge on there. It's amazing how it makes it blend in with the paint. You really can't even see it once it's dry. Doesn't have to be perfect. And probably right about here. Just guesswork. Doesn't have to be the exact measurement. As long as you've sized it up with your bottle, you're good to go. I have an Etsy store called the Crafty Attic where I sell my recycled bottles, and I've done really well with them. I have a lot of friends in town that save bottles for me, the local bars, a few of them. You'd be amazed how many you can collect. In fact, my garage is full and I'm going to have to part with some, I'm afraid. We'll see what happens when the weather finally warms up enough that I can get out there and paint. Okay, so this is pretty good where we'll want to start. I want about the same space on each side where I've torn. And get it back on the bottle where we wanted it, kind of centered somewhat between the seams. I don't know, you don't have to do that. That's just me. I'm kind of a perfectionist, I guess, when it comes to these things. But you really don't need to be. Okay, so start in the center. And this will make the napkin stick and easier to work on for the rest of the bottle. Just go all the way. You don't want it gloved up in spots, so you want to make sure it's spread out. And make sure it's high enough that everything will stick. If not, you'll have edges that don't want to lay. And you just go on lightly, and I like to tap. That's my secret. You might have better luck with something different, but it seems to be the best way not to tear the napkin. Okay, that's pretty well stuck, so we'll pull it back and cover the rest on that side. After you've done a few, you can do them with your eyes closed, honestly. But I will say I had a few wrecks in the beginning. The advantage to using spray paint, though, is you can rinse the napkin off. You lose it, of course, but the Modge Podge rinses off and you still have your painted bottle. You can start all over again. And I did lose a few that way. Some of my favorite napkins. Good thing is that most of the napkins have 4 sections. So you have, I guess, 4 chances to get it right if you need be. And see, I didn't go quite high enough on this, so I'm gonna just tap the brush along the edge. They're so thin, it just soaks right through. We can come back and make that lay down better after I get this side glued. It's easier when you first start to work with smaller sections, but as you go, you'll be able to take on a bigger strip. But to begin with, I'd start small sections. I'm going to be putting a layer of Modge Podge on top of the napkin too. Some people don't like to do that, but I found that that's what really finishes them up, makes them stick. And if you do it right, you shouldn't have any problems. I like to use the cream colored paint because most of the napkins that I purchase have a cream colored background and they just kind of mesh in with the paint. Okay, so we're pretty well covered on the underside. Now I'm going to go along and put it on top. Just bounce your brush. You don't want to use big brush strokes because that will tear your napkin too. And once you have a tear, it's pretty hard to fix. You almost have to start over. And you want to make everything covered completely on top. This helps seal it, keep it waterproof. I don't know that these can be ran under water after you've done this. I would probably avoid that, but they can just be wiped off probably with a damp cloth and it wouldn't hurt anything. These are Pendleton whiskey bottles and they're quite heavy, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that in my shop because shipping, as you know, has gone through the roof. I guess I could use a flat rate box to ship these in if I want to do them as a set. And the shipping wouldn't be as bad. I just think they look better in sets of 3, especially with the herbs. We've got a few wrinkles. We'll work those out with the saran wrap, and that will be the next step. Now here's the piece that I'd torn. You just lay it right on top. And this stuff was the best trick I discovered, I think. I tried to do it without, and it just doesn't work out very well. So if you get it on there real tight, then you can work out the wrinkles. Don't want to push too hard, but just enough pressure to get the wrinkles out. You always want to make sure you spend a little extra time on the edges. That's where it seems to want to lift if there's not enough Modge Podge under there. And I think that looks pretty dang good. So before it dries, we're going to peel it back up. And if you have any that want to stick, like right here some, just lay it back down and continue. And you can use that piece of saran wrap again if you need to. So as you can see, I've got some lifting here, and this is where I take a wet paper towel, just damp. You want to make sure most of the water's wrung out. And just go along the edges when you're having issues. Push it down. This one's going to be a bugger, it looks like. Oh, there we go. Once it's stuck. And a few wrinkles I think look fine. It gives it kind of an aged look. And it's handmade, so it can't be perfect, right? If you see that your Modge Podge is a little bit thick, you can touch that with the paper towel and it absorbs that extra. I don't think the extra would hurt anything, but sometimes it makes it bubble. This is going to be a cute set. I might decide just to keep this first one for me, because I have a whole bunch more of these bottles. Apparently Pendleton whiskey is a big thing in Wyoming. I myself have never tried it, but I'm not a whiskey drinker. But if you can save the bottles from the dumps, I'm all for that. Okay, now you can be fussy here if you want and trim it up if need be on the top. I have a few extras up here. And there was also some extra Modge Podge. You can just wipe that off with the paper towel. This is matte coat, so it should dry where you can't see it anyway, but I like to try and get it off there if I can. It's amazing how the napkin just becomes part of the bottle once you get it on there. It's like it. Most of them end up looking hand painted. To me, they do. Kind of cheating, I guess, but I never was much of an artist, so I'll do what I can to make it look good. Fingernails do amazing things. Probably shouldn't use them that way, but okay. That part is pretty much done. And I'm only going to put it on one side of the bottle. Some of my designs I like to do both sides, but not on this one. So we're going to let that dry. And the next coat, I like to put a varnish on these. And I don't like to use the spray varnishes because you have to be able to do that outdoors, and living in Wyoming we have very short summers, so most of my work is done in the winter time. This is just a brush on varnish. I believe I got this off of Amazon. Has no smell to it. It works really well. And I sometimes do 2-3 coats to give it a smooth finish. Okay, we'll let this dry and I'll be back in just a sec to put the varnish on. And we're back, And the napkin is dry and ready to varnish. I also use a sponge brush to apply the varnish. I usually just squeeze some out onto a foam plate. And that I also save that in the baggie and reuse it. Got to save money where you can these days. You don't have to push hard, just enough to make sure that it covers the entire napkin and bottle. I also do the painted part of the bottle. And it dries really quick. You want to make sure you don't have any runs or anything before you move on, or it'll be dry before you get back to it. And sometimes if the napkin wasn't quite dry, you'll get bubbles with this, and you can also use the damp paper towel for that, to work those out. I try to keep my brush strokes going the same direction, but on the edges, I hate to go against the grain there because I don't want to make anything left until it's completely set. I probably rushed this a little bit. I normally probably would have let the napkin dry longer, but for this tutorial I think it will be fine. And I just happen to have in my stash all kinds of herbs, the artificial greens, so I'm going to put those in the top of each bottle and wrap the neck with jute. That really adds to the kind of the farmhouse look. Once this is dry, there won't be much shine at all to it. It's really nice not to have to smell those chemicals with the spray varnishes. I have used them and yeah, they're not good. It's bad enough with just the spray paint. And I've got a piece of fuzz or something in here. So you do want to keep that wet napkin around, or wet paper towel. Comes in handy. Okay, I've pretty much covered all that. Go ahead and do the top. And this part will be covered, so with the jute. I guess that's somewhat my signature. Every bottle I do seems to end up with jute wrapped around the neck. I may have reused this sponge brush too many times because I'm picking up quite a bit of fuzzy here. So after this one, I'll have to throw it out. Okay, that part is done. So on a lot of my bottles, I like to do the spackled look. Don't know why, but it seems to tie the bottle in with the napkin. I'm going to do these for Father's Day. I think that's a really cute napkin on the Jack Daniel's bottle. But afterward, I take just acrylic paint and put it on a paper plate like this, water it down a little bit, dab a toothbrush in it, and just brush your thumb across the bristles of the brush, and it sprays these flecks on there. Don't know, I think I might do it to the the herb bottles. But that's a whole different process and for another day. But anyway, that's the basics of this. And I'll take a picture when I'm done with the artificial sage that I have and add it to this video so you can see how I would finish it. Okay, thanks for watching. Be sure and hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and the bell icon so you'll be notified when I do another video. Thanks for joining me.